Hi, everybody. This is Jennifer Corduff. I'm a professor at Azusa Pacific University, and I'm just really thrilled to be here with you today. And I'm thrilled that you are spending an hour with us. And Sarah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Sarah Orton, and I'm just here as I do a lot of professional development consulting after I left teaching, and I'm also excited to be here.
So the purpose of this webinar today is to create a matrix or an organized way to be able to locate all the tools that you've learned about during COVID. I know that so many of us went fully online for 18 months or more, and more or less, and there were a lot of things that you learned. A lot of us learned how to use different learning management systems, Schoology, Canvas, the list goes on and on. A lot of you learned how to use different tools for remote speech services, remote alt services, remote behavior services, so many things. And so Sarah and I thought, wouldn't it be a nice thing to show you a way to organize all those tools so you have a one-stop shop for when chaos is happening in your classroom and you just need a tool and it's quick and easy for you to find. So you've learned all these tools. Why not now put them down that you transition to hybrid or face-to-face, or if you're bouncing back and forth between hybrid, virtual, and face-to-face. Face-to-face, depending on your state and depending on what's going on with your district. So let me give you some examples. There is a folder, and this folder is actually available to you in the resource guide, this resource guide. There's presentation slides, there's a spreadsheet, there's all kinds of tools here for you that we're using from this presentation. So so don't write things down, it's all there for you. So anyway, here's some former students of mine. It's actually an assignment I have my students do as they're learning about different assistive technology, AAC device, tools in one of their master's classes. So let me show you one. These are all available to you, like I said, in that Google Doc. So here's a snapshot of what I mean. So at the top, there's a link to David's video presentation about his matrix and why he made it and how he made it. But they have broken it down into reading tasks, design strategies that they use in the classroom, hardware that they have in their particular classroom, and tools and software that they can use to help with reading goals. Now, he's a gen ed person, but he services mild mod students as well. So this is actually something that's very applicable for both general ed and special ed teachers, SLPs, PTs, OTs, ATs, and parents. So it kind of goes a long way. Don't get overwhelmed by this. We don't expect you to develop anything like this today, but we do want to show you that the presentation is meant for you to be able to construct something that you can print and staple to your wall or have a digital copy of. We won't spend too much more time in there. But before I go on, I have to let you know that I personally, and Sarah as well, have taught ADHD kids for a really long time. So we're used to blurting and we're used to questions in the moment. So we appreciate it. If you just pop in with a question, pop in with an idea, we are completely interruptible. 100%. We prefer it that way. So Sarah's manning the Q&A as we speak. There is one that has been developed for SLPs, just learning goals, design strategies, hardware, and tools or apps that could be used for AAC, articulation, emotions, expressive and receptive language, social pragmatics, teacher tools. These are also in this share folder. Feel free to download it, save it, print it, whatever you want to do with it. We have a video example of one of my students explaining it. I won't do the whole thing.
Hi everyone, this is my task tool matrix with assistive technology tools. So the reason I picked some of these tools were because they're accessible, they develop or strengthen certain skills They help with scaffolding. They provide visual or different means of representation, and they overall just help students learn. I've also inputted a column here that says assist with, and it kind of just goes over why I picked these tools. So I'm going to be highlighting some of the tools that I like from each section. Specifically for reading, I really like Newsella. It has a ton of news and libraries, and it levels reading for students. For writing, I like Coggle. This is really great for mind mapping, and it helps them make connections. And you can also use this across a lot of content areas. For math, I use interactive simulations for just about anything. You can find estimation, fractions, and so on this website, which I really like. For social studies, I like this 3D interactive map. You can find populations or just different types of things. And when you go ahead and click it, it's a really awesome earth that can rotate, and you can see the axle tilt. As you can see here, I got it. So this is pretty cool to kind of drag and see what happens with earth in different areas. And then for science, we have the National Geographic Kids, which has games and videos that can help students or extend learning. So these are my task tool. This is my task tool matrix. And at the bottom, we have the social skills and other. And these are the tools that I like to use, especially CALM. So I hope you enjoy, and I hope you get to use some of these tools as well. Thank you.
So as you see, I've got the students just briefly explaining the reason behind why they're doing what they're doing. And I showed you that in order for you to kind of have a basic idea of the purpose of this whole thing. So first of all, there's several ways that you can organize your matrix. One of the ways you can do that is to organize by subject. And Sarah, I think this is your slide.
Yep. So as you saw a little bit on that example in the video, you can organize by curricular subject like reading, math, writing, social studies, science, but you can also think about subjects like social skills, organizational needs, or even homework help. However you think of that, that could be a subject that you're trying to create in your matrix. There's the next slide. You can organize by goals. If you have goals for your students, their emotions, articulation, receptive language, expressive language, social pragmatics, and then cognitive, physical, and behavior challenges can all be a way that you organize your matrix.
Yeah, there's so many different ways to go, and we really want you to think about the way that's most pragmatic for you. Another way that you could organize them is by tool. So if you are working with students with communication issues, you might want to create a matrix just for AAC support, or low tech, mid tech, and high tech tools, or no tech tools. But again, it's meant to be something that in the rush of the moment, I'm teaching this thing with AAC, I need some support, I need a new idea. Oh yeah, I did that thing back in COVID. And I have this paper, and I can see my ideas now, and they help you just stay really organized instead of trying to remember things in the heat of the moment, which is probably not, well, I can't do it. So I don't know who can do it. It's hard. Also, it's important to align with good design strategies. So what are design strategies? That always trips everybody up just a little bit, but it's easier than you think it is. Universal design for learning is actually, everybody hears about it now. It's a big thing, and it's been a big thing for a while. UDL is really the overarching umbrella through which we can service mild mod severe, gifted, 504, all of these different needs. It's an overarching umbrella, and under which we have AT, AAC, all these supportive things that we need. So UDL for learning is it's really important to keep that at the front of your mind when you're looking at activities for your kiddos. As you know, engagement represent that you should have multiple ways of engagement, multiple means of representation, and action and expression. Super important for your kiddos. So we also found this 5 effective teaching strategies to help your students in school. I love Prodigy. I think it's a really good organization and just really pragmatic information. So visualizing information for your kids, that's really important. Student-led classrooms. You know, we think that we can only do this with gifted kids, but that's not really the case. The case is that students really love being, for most students, really love being in charge in some capacity. And when they're in charge, when they feel like they're in charge of their learning and they're actually teaching other students, the learning goes much deeper, right? Because as teachers, we know that when we start teaching, we really understand the content area so much more than when we just learned it. So student-led classrooms, implementing technology in the classroom. Students are more highly engaged and motivated by technology. Not all students, but many of them. One of the things I and some researchers did 3 active COVID-related special education studies last year in 2020, right? And those articles are in final write-up or final publication. But one of the things we learned that I think is really, really cool is that for students with autism, the going virtual was, for many of them, a brilliant relief. They were so excited to be just in the little box because the distractions of being in a whole class were eliminated. It was just them with a teacher or them with other students in little boxes. They became way more productive and engaged. And we got this data in a national study where we interviewed 46 special educators from across the nation. So I feel fairly confident that that's good information to give you. Don't be afraid of trying this technology with students with behavior problems, because sometimes, not oftentimes, the technology it can be a lifesaver for them. Differentiation, scaffolding up or scaffolding down in order to help students learn in ways that are applicable to them and keep that zone of proximal development kind of close, so it's not too hard for them and it's not too easy for them. Differentiation is really important. Inquiry-based instruction. So instead of just pouring out information onto your students, that's so 19th century school anyway, but making them come up with the information. So when I was back in the classroom, especially in 7th and 8th grades, when students would ask me something, I would say, did you ask Mr. Google? I have to ask Mr. Google. Yep, Mr. Google. And then there's a whole middle school-ish conversation about if Google was male or female. And that was a hilarious conversation. But the pattern for me was always to say, go forth and try to find the information and then come back and report, instead of me saying, oh, well, here's the answer. Because it's better for them to be curators of their own knowledge, to learn how to find answers and to seek several different answers for one question and to determine, which one's actually valid. So this is a really good website. Oops. And I went too far. And of course, SEDI strategies. We can't leave those out. Those are excellent strategies for students who are learning English, things that you should be doing, and things that will make it more student-centered. I found this from a source on the internet, and I have to find the source for you, but it's a great little print it up and put it on your wall kind of a checklist in order to keep you really thinking about the things you're doing to implement supporting those ELLs in your classroom. So really quick, common technology in your instructional setting. If you'll go into the chat or the Q.
Hold on, time out. I'm sorry. I don't know if they'll need it at all right now, but links 3, 4, and 5 on the handout require permission. So you'll need to change that. The
3, 4, and 5.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, cool.
There was another, I think that's the one, because it seems like we needed permission to get into the Google Drive, and I think those are the ones, 3, 4, and 5. Yeah.
Okay, after the presentation, I will go through, or actually while you're facilitating this Sarah, this thing, I will go through and fix those.
Okay, great.
Cool.
Can you go back to the?
Well, then I can't fix them.
Yes,
So I
okay.
will fix them. Yeah.
All
Okay.
right. Common technology and your instructional setting. So we're going to start talking about what you have if we're going to design a matrix. So what are your tried and true technology resources? What do you go to? What have you started recently using? Like, for example, laptops or iPads, Chromebooks, Google Classroom or Google Drive, or an Elmo. I had an Elmo. I don't even know if those exist anymore, you know, replace the old projectors. But what are things that you're using in your classroom right now? Or have you started using that you could use to help you? So this is a good, if you have any questions, or if you want to, if there's something different that I did not say, if you want to put it in the chat box, a different type of technology resource that you might be using.
3 is fixed.
Thank you. Do you have any, Jennifer, other tried and true technology resources that you use?
Me?
Yeah, you.
Yes, I
I
use
did.
my Chromebook, I use my iPhone, I use
Oh, yeah.
my laptop, I use social media for a lot of learning that I personally do and that I do working with teachers. And for looking at historical scenarios in my teaching. I love the internet as far as being able to find information and look at multiple sources for one question that I might have and go that way. That way it helps me find the truth for myself rather just believing one source, which is never a good thing for me to believe one source. So, or for anybody, I think. It's good modeling for your students too.
Yes.
Okay, now 3 is fixed, everybody. So you should be able to see that now. And 4 is fixed now, just so you know. And let's fix 5 so y'all can see it too. UDL is just a website. Oh, it goes to, okay.
We can go to the next slide now too.
Okay. Yep. Okay. 3 and 4 are fixed. 5 I'll have to fix later. Okay. Implementation. You can start creating a matrix for yourself or one for other people. So one of the things that if you teach upper elementary or middle or high school students, maybe you want to give them a list of choices for tools they can use. So your students can be using different tools to accomplish the same task, which is, it gives them some freedom, it gives them some leverage in how they want to do it, it helps with creativity. Tools for colleagues is a big one as well. I know that here when we had the March 13th, Friday the 13th notification from the governor that we were shutting down, and we had over a weekend to have all of our courses online. My courses are always online, I teach online, but some of our faculty members really had a hard time because they'd only ever taught face-to-face and they had no idea how to convert everything over to Canvas, how to add instructional videos, that it wasn't appropriate to teach from 4:45 to 9:30 on Zoom. That's way too long, things like that. So you might want to, as we did here, we created a matrix for our colleagues to help them with just a few. You start slow, don't give them an entire world of tools, just 2 or 3 things, show them how to use it, tell them to use it for a couple of days, a couple of weeks, stay slow and stay really simple. Also, tools for parents and caregivers. Now, we have created a matrix for a sample of for parents and caregivers, since parents became teachers in a lot of situations last year. Teachers became coaches and parents became teachers in a lot of instances. In our study that we did in the school to home connection in implementing AT and AAC, the research was done with both parents and with teachers. And what we found was that when there was a strong bond and partnership from the school to the home, from the point of contact, which is the SPED teacher, to the parent, also with a robust support from the technology department, the teachers' needs were met, their questions were answered. That was a situation in which students could really flourish. But there were situations where there was a breakdown, either because there was multiple, a parent would have multiple children with disabilities in the home, and it was really chaotic all the way around. There were situations where the administration or the tech department in a school wasn't really supportive of what was going on in the home and couldn't get resources. So there's all kinds of ways it doesn't work, but there's all kinds of ways it also does work. So now what? First, you can create a matrix for students and parents. And here is the link. We created this sample for you to show you. Please make sure you have permission, or I've given you permission for this. I'm pretty sure that I have.
There's this one, and there's also a blank one in that Google folder, which will help you as we're talking. If you want to pull up the blank one, might be a good idea for you to be thinking about what you could add to your own matrix of curricular tasks.
Yeah.
How to use these tools. Yeah, the template, I think, is
right. All right, in here, there's a template for parents and students. There's a blank template for you to download and start working on. You are more than make a copy of it. So let me show you how to do that. You go to File and make a copy, and then add your name to it. I don't see very many people in it. Do you have access to this? Someone is going to be called Corda. And now it's in your Google Drive. And you can start working on it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, there we go. There's somebody in there.
Perfect. All right.
Okay, Lori, refresh your screen. Because I want you to be able to have access to this right now, right away. So I'm going to go back here and make sure.
Yeah, sometimes you just need to refresh in order for it to realize that you have had permissions.
Anyone with the link. Yep. Can view, which means when you can view it, you can make a copy of it. Lori, let us know that you are able to get in there now, okay?
She's working on it.
Yeah.
We can go.
Okay. So you would go in and make a copy of that, and then start thinking about what do you want a matrix to be for? Are you a gen ed person that teaches reading? Well, everybody teaches reading and everybody teaches writing, I tell my students. So those are the most important. They're always going to be on a matrix because those things everybody teaches, ELA, reading and writing, even if it's math, whether or not it's math or science or social studies. We all of us teach reading and writing. And then you can, if you're SLP, you can make a matrix, as I said, on articulation, expression, goals, or maybe you just have a heart for your parents and you want to make a matrix for them and send it on home. Yay, Lori's in. Hallelujah. Great. All right, I'm going to stop here. Does anyone have any questions or comments before we move on? think we're okay.
Mhm. All right,
So,
let's get going. So if you're going to be creating a matrix for yourself, for your students, or for your parents, it's easy if you do it just starting with the first row. Choose a subject or a goal that you have where you use a lot of technology. Don't just because I taught reading, writing, grammar, social studies, but just reading's always on the forefront of my mind, but I used a lot of technology with social studies. So that might be easier for me to get started with. I know I always used the iPads with social studies. And so that could be, and I always had Google Classroom. That's where they found all of their assignments. So that's where I might start with social studies. Or if I was working on a particular behavior goal with a student, that might be where I start behavior, if that's the big thing in my classroom. Then once you've thought of that through, then add your tasks, whether they be curriculum tasks or IEP goals. So you're thinking your tasks, reading, writing, homework. If you're doing how you're grouping, it gets a little confusing. Maybe Jennifer, you could clarify, because now I'm at this, I guess you want to think of the subject first, right? And then you want to add your design strategies and your curriculum, your goals. So that would be your reading, writing, social studies. If you're using UDL, whole group, small group, one-on-one, paired partner activities,
right.
and then work on the hardware. So like I said, if I'm choosing, oh, sorry, go ahead.
It's okay. Or another way you can do it is kind of haphazard. The way I kind of tend to do things is I have all these tools. I make a list of all the tools that you have, that you've learned. Just brainstorm, write it down on a piece of paper, all these things that you've had, Starfall, ABC. There's a whole, for me, there's groups in Pinterest that I'll show you in a minute. And Facebook.
Google Classroom,
right.
Read, Write, Think.
And Read and Write for Google Chrome extension and all the John Johnson things that are out there. I would just make a big brainstorming list and then try to organize it into, okay, this I use mostly for reading and this I use mostly for writing. And if there's crossover, put it down twice, put it in 2 different rows.
My favorite example, if you're looking for an example, is the one that we were talking about yesterday. The one that you showed me. That sounds very vague and very broad, but there's a really good example, and I think we've already showed it. Or the one that you had on that was. Those are good examples to see. The matrix examples is what I'm trying to say.
Right. Those are the ones that
those are good when if you can't think, sometimes you get stuck looking through there and looking, oh yeah, I do a lot of small group and I do a lot of one-on-one and I do this one,
this is Tejeda. He did his actually in a Google spreadsheet.
And just going through and think, oh yeah, I use that too. Seeing examples from other people to make your giant list of your technology and of your hardware and your software, and then organize it all. And maybe that's, you work backwards, right? We think of all the tools, the hardware, the software, and then think, okay, what subject do I use? Like I said, social studies. Okay, I use a lot of this in social studies. So I'm going to do social studies. And then what design strategies am I using? Small group, whole group, UDL, choice boards. I did a lot of project-based learning in social studies. And so that might be, if you kind of work from right to left on the matrix, that might also help you organize your thoughts.
Right, and I just put up another resource for you. In the Chrome web store, there are tons of resources on accessibility, or let's do it a different way. Learning need. I put in here learning needs. So there's a whole bunch of different Chrome extensions that you can find in the Chrome store. Read and Write is my absolute favorite, and I know that we hit on it in almost every single presentation we do, but read and write for Google is amazing, even though it's not coming up here. But there's a ton of accessibility centered extensions also in the Chrome store or for on Firefox and different things like that. All right. Reminders. Start
Yeah.
simple.
Add hyperlinks. Think about your students' needs first. Remember, this is why you're creating, even if you're creating it for parents, your goal is to always be thinking about what's best for your students, and think about what happens in the moment of chaos.
Which is the whole reason, as I said from the beginning, that we did this in the first place, because you have all these tools and they're just splattered all over little Post-it notes in your classroom. I did that, little planners everywhere. But once I sat down to spend an hour putting them on a table in a Word document, print it out, staple it to my classroom wall, or leave it on my desktop on my computer because there's hyperlinks. Then when you're like, I need something right now and I can't remember what I used last time, you go back to it, you click the hyperlink and you're there. So 1 hour on the front end saves you a lot of time on the back end. Chaos is a thing. All right.
Practice time. So this would be a good opportunity for you to pull up that blank matrix that is provided in the handout, and to be starting to work and make your giant list, if you haven't already, of your hardware and your software, and create, who are you creating it for? As I'm sitting here talking, I realized, when we had, for a very long period before budget cuts, we had a technology person, an instructional technology person on our campus, and she was in charge of coming into classrooms and teaching kids how to use the tools and helping us set up projects. And this would have been a perfect matrix for her to have to go around to teachers, because it doesn't matter if you're a kinder teacher or if you were a 5th or 6th grade teacher, because thinking about just the tools, the software that we had at the school, this could go across all grade levels. We knew what hardware we all had, and design strategies is something you talked about, when we vertically aligned, or, across our teams and just school wide, there was strategies we had to implement. Whole group, I do, you do, we do was something that we had to do in our teaching. And so that could have been something that is written on here, and that would have been nice. So maybe you're creating this, I hate to say like for the entire school, but it might be something that all grades could be benefiting from. So this would be a great time for you to be thinking. And if you want to jump in and participate, so that would be awesome. If you want to tell us some tools, I know somebody said Chromebooks and iPads with their students. Does anybody else have any other software at their site, or any other design strategies, or maybe something more specific that you use in your classroom, writing, reading, social studies, that you want to share with the group so that we could all use it on our own matrix? We used, I don't know where this would fit, maybe tools software. We would create QR codes.
That's a tool. Yeah.
Yeah, that was really awesome. Then the kids would scan the QR codes. When I taught 5th grade,
it's great.
They learned to make their own QR code.
I mean, if we flip it around, what are some ideas that you need? Maybe you're like, I don't know, I don't have any ideas right now. What are some ideas that you need from us for tools? What are you working on that you might need a tool for?
Oh yeah, that's a good one.
Okay, not a lot of chatting today. I understand it's lunchtime here. Maybe it's lunchtime there. All right, so just think about it. And so once you have decided to do your matrix, there's all kinds of groups that we'd love to share with you today that are very valuable for kiddos and for us as teachers. I didn't really realize, I'm kind of a Facebook, I'm not on it very much because I feel like so much of it is negative and there's so much of a waste of time on Facebook that I didn't really even look uh, for societies in Facebook groups until I saw on the news about a year ago this group that had been created called Distance Learning Educators. And they were interviewing these two teachers that had created this private Facebook group just as a way of supporting each other during COVID, when everybody was on distance learning. It's a private group, which means that there are pretty tight social regulations. You can't use profanity. You can't talk about vaccinations. You cannot talk about politics. Any negative people get booted out of the group. But it's meant to be very positive, very supportive, very empathetic of other teachers. And I loved seeing that so much. I went right on as soon as I could, and I joined. I had to go through a little questionnaire, and then I had to wait about 24 hours. But now you can see it's still going. There's a lot of great action on this list. There's a lot of great ideas and conversations on this list. It's pretty amazing what you can learn from a group like this. It's Pacific Coast time. They're in LA, but it doesn't matter. You can be wherever you are in the world because Facebook is 24/7. Another one that I really think is powerful for you to know about it's called a social emotional learning and education. This I came across once I joined Distance Educators, and then I did a search for special education, social emotional learning. This one came right up. It's another one that's private that you have to actually apply to be part of. But boy, does this pop. It is a great place for you to ask good questions, get some support, get some encouragement. Dina said today it has to start with you. So it would be helpful to list the functional benefits of each tool in the matrix. Yes.
Yeah, that actually, you could almost create, I don't want to say a separate column, because you don't want it to be so messy, but if you had either another document or somewhere like an appendix, I guess. Jennifer, you're more familiar with doing that than I am.
Right.
But
Yeah, but
keeping
this,
it separate, you have all these tools and then saying, this is why.
so for this one, I changed it. Charles, this is a really great question because actually I did this for the parent student one. I didn't do design strategies. I did curriculum. What is this for? Why do I need to use it?
Mhm.
And this is exactly what you're saying. You're not going to get a lot of teacher buy-in if they don't understand it. It's like the so what, who cares piece, right? We have to keep it simple and keep it connected. So when you talk to your teachers about Starful or whatever, unless they see a direct connection from that, between that tool and how it can be used with their students, there is no teacher buy-in. I worked in professional development with gen ed and sped teachers for many, many years now. And the way they learn is different. It's really an interesting phenomenon, but for a gen ed teacher, you give them a tool, you say, here's how I use it. Here's how you can use it with your fourth graders and in reading, and you're specific that way, but it can be generalized to an entire class. That's one thing. But with special education teachers, they need to be shown connections for that tool to a specific student. And unless you can make that connection for them, how and why this might work with your kiddo, they'll just be like, this is another professional development for gen ed. It doesn't apply to us. Because I've heard that over and over. And really the way we need to work with that population, it's my favorite population in the world, by the way. But those specific connections to how it can help individual kiddos are crucial for teacher buy-in on that. So you can create your own headings up there. So what, who cares? What is it for? Why do I need to use it? put hyperlinks in here. It's kind of a long explanation, but I love that. I love that you asked that question. Thank you. Oh, you're welcome. Another group, self-contained and special education. See, and these again, with the teachers, they would say, I don't even need to be part of this group. Okay, but if you teach self-contained SPED, this is a great place, you would say, to your SDC teacher, where you can communicate with other self-contained distance learning, or moving back from distance learning to face-to-face learning. There's a whole bunch of people just like you. This is your community. This is where you can get a ton of ideas from people that do the same thing you do every day. So I love this. My good friend and colleague, Chris Wenger, is an SLP. His handle is Speech Dude. And he has a whole Instagram site where he just talks about supporting the social emotional needs of speech language pathologists during COVID. And he does it with a lot of humor and a lot of positivity. And I'll show you that in a minute too, but you have to make those connections. Support for understood families is another one, understood.org, if you know that. It's great organization, a lot of free resources. And they do a lot with families, with students with ADHD and with autism, with severe learning or behaviors. It's really a parent support group as well as a teacher support group. Very empathetic, very kind, and very pragmatic. Now, I hope that this is one of my favorites. Nope, it's not there. Okay, where is that? Anyway, there's another one. Okay. There's another one that is on your matrix. It's one that a mom actually developed for her son. Her son was born neurotypical, everything was fine. And he hit all his benchmarks, and he turned about 3. And what she told me is he started to disappear. She was one of my interviewees last year. And it was an incredibly painful story, and an incredibly painful thing for her to watch. The Facebook group is called United Through Autism, and she manages it. Her son is now in middle school. He has an AAC device, and sometimes he uses it and sometimes he doesn't want to. But she has created this whole United Through Autism Facebook group where moms and dads and families with students with autism, with children with autism, have a place to belong and have a place where they can ask what they think is crazy questions. And what they find is that we're all going through similar things, and those are highly empathetic groups. And I think the reason we're showing you these is because we've been so isolated for so long, right? And it's so nice to know that you have a community out there. Okay, so Twitter handles there. I know Twitter is the other one that people go, are you serious, Jennifer? Twitter, come on. And then all of a sudden I found that Twitter has the highest amount of special educators. It's crazy how many special educators are out there. In Twitter, you can just type in assistive technology, and there's an AT chat. They have a chat once a month. Cast is on there. Christopher Hills, who's the most amazing human ever. Please follow him on Twitter and Facebook and everywhere, YouTube. He has a YouTube channel called I Am Not My Disability. He has severe cerebral palsy, and he has uses AAC. He is now a Google certified and an Apple certified film editor. And he's amazing. If you want to laugh and you want to feel encouraged and really just motivated, follow Chris Hills. He's amazing. And there's so many others of these out here. Also Instagram. So Instagram has become another social media site where special education and teaching has exploded. So Speech Dude, as I told you, my friend and colleague, Chris Wanger, he is hilarious and he is motivating and he is always bringing up tech tips and inspiration and motivation for you. He also has a website. Follow him. He's amazing. We have a good amount of AbleNet webinars called the Speech Dude series. If you ever want to go back and watch those, we go over a lot of different resources for SLP. There's also SLP Advocate. It's another Instagram site. She is highly motivating. She just does a lot of really good work for support of SLP teachers. Structured special ed is another great one. She's got a lot of really great motivational things. Of course, you're not going to follow all of them, but you can follow the ones that really sing to your heart. Autism Speaks is a really big organization and powerful. And if you have parents that need that extra support or want a community, here's another really great community to help all of us, teachers, parents, even the kids, learn how to live well with autism. Life in Autism World, I love this one. I found it just recently, and they celebrate it. They use a lot of humor and relatable content. So it's another great place for you to tinker around in there. As I often say, knowledge is power. And so if it's not applicable to you, there is always that opportunity that one of these days, someone is going to cross your path who's going to whine about needing or talk about needing a support group or a certain tool. And you have this knowledge. So life works that way. It's kind of random, and you'll have this knowledge. You don't think you'll ever use it, but then somebody needs it from you, and you're the person that's there to tell them about it. So these are really good things to know about, keep in your back pocket. You can also create your own community. And then last one, Pinterest. Again, this is another thing I never thought I'd see, but there is a big special ed community on Pinterest. Practical AAC has a lot of resources, has a lot of news, has a lot of helpful things. Lauren Enders is a Pinterest goddess. She is just really has boards for AAC and so many really great resources for you to help you not have to reinvent the wheel and to feel more normal and to get some ideas. It's a lot of information, I know, but it's good information. So there's a special education activities here, sensory boards, IEP tubs, all kinds of different ideas for you. Or you can put this on your matrix and share it with maybe new teachers at your site or with your administrators, or if you're lucky enough to have a technology coordinator or person that way, you could show them these things and they could say, here's some supportive places for you to go. There is vocational activities and life skills for those of you who work with the older students who are 19 to 22 and are trying to transition out and really live a fruitful, productive life, positive life. So this is another great one I found for ideas if that's what you teach. And then again, on Pinterest, you can create your own community. And Sarah, it is up to you now.
Yeah. Don't forget about analog delivery. Nothing is wrong with paper and pencil. And I actually meant to say earlier, when you're thinking about your tools, you can think about Post-it notes, journals, digital and paper, highlighters, flyers, newsletters, email, posters, all of those things. There's nothing wrong with that. And it should still be utilized because the pencil has not gone away. So we can't forget about it. You still want your kids practicing how to write. So yeah, now that you have ideas for the structure of your matrix and some social media collaboration.
Before we go to that, I wanted to just say, I just want to mention the power of the Post-it note real quick.
I love
So,
Post-it notes.
do you know how incredibly powerful Post-it notes are? If you have a student, and I have many, who they think if they write it down, it's permanent. And it's really hard for them to make a decision about things because they're very intrapersonal. So they have a big inner life and they like to really think things through and they overthink everything. And they writing it down with a pen or a pencil seems really permanent. So what I have my students who are like that do is I just give them a stack of Post-it notes and say, write things down on Post-it notes, okay? And then put it where you think it might go. Because guess what? Post-it notes can be moved. You can have this good idea, but it can be moved to the front, to the back, to the trash can. You can rewrite it. And it takes stress down. It really reduces stress for a lot of students and teachers because they're not permanent. So you don't have to erase and you don't have to worry about making a mistake. Just had to go there. The power of the Post-it note. Okay. So what things, so here's the crux of it. You've spent 52 minutes with us today, and what kinds of things have you learned or are you excited about that you might be able to bring back to colleagues or friends or parents or others in your life? You're like, I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. It's a lot of information. I get it. So here's my favorite question. So what? Who cares? Who cares about all this stuff, Jennifer and Sarah? What's the point of all this?
Your kids do, he does. And all of those that you're teaching, everyone that's under your sphere of influence, there's lots of people that care, even though you don't think they do. It's sometimes really hard to get a read on the room. And that's okay, because there's lots of people who do care, even if they don't know it, especially kids. But they do, and it matters to them.
It matters to them a lot because these are the ones that we're preparing for that graduation, for being productive members of society in the future. So he cares. He cares what you do because you're preparing him and you're preparing yourself to prepare him to move into this digital world and to be able to navigate both the digital and the analog world. So thank you for coming. That ends our webinar for today. We'll stick around for a few minutes if you have any other questions. And there's our email addresses and my Twitter handle in case you want to follow me on Twitter or anything. Again, we know that you have a lot of things that you can be doing today, and we just appreciate you spending 53 minutes with us. Sarah?
Yeah, thanks for coming.